welcome back to the channel, guys, and this time there's finally sound. And as you saw by the title, I will be teaching you education. This is the first few topics of education. We're going to go over functionalist, marxist, and the, what was it called again? Like the labeling theory. Let's start. What I'm going to do is I have 3 notebooks. This is what I made on my own. This is a school one, and this is a textbook. So whatever my book doesn't cover, this one will cover. And whatever this one doesn't cover, will cover on that one. To make sure that this exams, we cover everything. We get everything done. Alright? So first, let's start with functionalist views. Actually, I'm going to start with the knowledge organizer because that will like summarize everything up. Start. I've gone over this topic 100 times, but you can never be too knowledgeable. First, functionalism. So there are 4 functions in functionalism of education. Social solidarity, the second one. Bridge between family and society. Third, developing human capital. 4th, role allocation, David, and more. The way I remember this, Silly Sally, social solidarity, brought Faye, bridge and family, decent hummus, remember Abigail? Silly Sally brought Faye decent hummus, remember Abigail? You might not remember that. Abigail, RA, role allocation. So what are they in detail? So socialization and social solidarity is that the education system, sorry, my life is my Flora app. That's the education system passes on the cultural and values of society achieved through hidden curriculum and PSHE. Remember this for your AO2 points. The bridge between family and society, BF. Parsons, one of the functionaries, said that schools provide a link between the family and wider society, allowing students to move from ascribed status and particularistic values of the home into meritocratic and universalistic. Okay, what are these words that I'm saying? Particularistic is like words that means like values and rules that only apply inside your house, in your personal home and family. Like, if I punch my sister, it's okay because like that's what we do in our family. But universalistic values means values and rules which apply to all members of society equally. So if I punch a person in society like that, I don't know, it's not gonna be okay because that's like a known value consensus thing. Developing human capital. It's the idea that the investment in education benefits wider economy. What does this mean? It means education can properly provide trained and qualified and flexible workforce. Like saying, if you do education, if you do school, you will get a job, you will do well, you will be able to blah, 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 blah. And it makes sure that you're in the, it like promises that you're going to have the most skill set if you do education. Next, role allocation. The education system provides means to select and sift people into social hierarchy in a meritocratic society. So just remember, selecting and sifting people into social hierarchy. Like, you know, the sets, for example, set 1, set 2, set 3, that's the hierarchy. Like, who's most likely to do well? Okay, so now we got those done. What are evaluations of this? Evaluations are that it ignores aspects of education which are dysfunctional, such as negative conflict. Another is that, a key idea in education from a functionalist perspective is that that school is the idea of meritocracy. What is meritocracy? Merit. When people do good, they get merits. The idea that the harder you work, the better you do. Marxist, I think this one. My sibling is in the area. I do not want them to watch me. The general. So Bolton teachers who are Marxists say that meritocracy is a myth because it can apply to, because it neglects the idea that there are people in private school who get even better education than the state school kids. Marxists also say that the hidden curriculum reinforces social inequality and maintains ruling class ideology because it tries to tell them to be obedient and to listen to their boss when they don't have to. Which we can link to Wong's idea that functionalists see children as passive puppets of socialization, when the process is much more complex and involves a teacher-pupil relationships. There is a weak link between education and achievement. Anyways, also, hidden curriculum means the informal learning process that teaches students the norms and values of society. So it's just like PSHE and like internalizing society's values, but not in a very formal way, but informally saying it to them. In assembly, they might be you have to do this, or something. And human capital, this is another AO1 terminology. Human capital means a stock of knowledge or skills that makes them an economic asset to society. Okay, now let's do it in my notes. I went over there. We did that. She's coming down the stairs. Okay. So just a quick one. What are functions of education? How do these functions of education serve the needs of the economy? It passes on dominant ideology. I'm not saying I believe this, by the way. I'm just saying, what if it's a 6 mark and it asks you, how does the functionalist view of education serve the economy or help society? Because it passes on dominant ideology, so there's less conflict. I'm just saying I think it connotes passes on dominant ideology, meaning less conflict between individuals because they root for the same thing. Legitimizing inequality. Oh, so not all of these are good. Right, next. The book. We're getting through this pretty good, guys. Right, well, everyone says the same thing, so this getting kind of useless. Okay, back to the knowledge organizer. Marxism. Woo! Woo! Anyway, there's no cuts, just pauses, no editing. I'm just going to put all the clips together on YouTube. So, Marxists say that the main role of education is to maintain capitalism and reproduce social inequality. Let's say that again. Let's highlight the keywords. Main role of education is to maintain capitalism. Maintain capitalism. And reproduce social inequality, reproducing inequalities in society. What? But how? But what are the 4 functions of Marxism in the eyes of the 4 functions of education in the eyes of a Marxist? I am a Marx feminist, so I truly do quite agree with all this, but believe what you want to believe, I guess. First one, Althusser says that there are 2. Well, the first 2 are by Althusser. He says that it reproduces social inequality. How does it reproduce social inequality? Because education deliberately engineers working class failure in order to create an unqualified factory workforce. For example, let's look at Paul Willis. The kids who were working class were they had a bad label, and then they went on to not having proper qualified jobs. No shade to bricklayers, yeah, but they decided I don't need an education. I can just bricklay. A factory workforce, unqualified, to make the things for the work for the upper class, the elites. This is because this is also shown in private education as they prepare children for the elite positions of power. True. Because most of the prime ministers are from private schools. And a lot of people, like, they are saying that because the private school kids are like, they're rich, they have the money to afford these, they know what's best. They should be treated the best and they should be ready for the best. Not true. And this is also shown through hidden curriculum as it shapes to assist middle class achievement and the tier working class achievement, because it influences the ideas of meritocracy. The harder you work, the better you'll do. If the middle class kid can afford to work harder because they're getting extra tutoring, they're gonna do better than the working class student who can't afford any tutoring. And I'm not trying to go off topic, but have you ever thought why they can't afford it? Why their parents can't afford it? Wake up, people. Legitimization of, another one is, the second role, is legitimization of social inequality, meaning middle class has access to more cultural and economic capital, which puts them at an advantage. Exactly like I said, the middle class people, the richer people, have better access to education, like support, not the working class. And I think there's a hair in my mouth. Who's coming downstairs? Education encouraged students to blindly accept capitalist values through the hidden curriculum. Not me. Can't blind my eyes. Next, this is the third one. Correspondence principle. I like this one because I remember it well. The process of school mirrors the world of the works. So in order to prepare them for manual labor, like they say, be obedient, be good, follow my orders. What does this do? It prepares them, the working class children, for manual labor, like bricklaying, like manual labor, like sheen factories. This is so that this prepares them for wages not being satisfactory. This prepares them to have a lack of control. This prepares them to be obedient. This prepares them to be disciplined. This prepares them to face boring life because they have to accept, because that's just life. It's not just life. Wake up, people. You don't have to be entrepreneurial, not saying that. But you have a future for yourself if you realize you do and you're not being told that you're doing. And the fourth one, myth of meritocracy. Education claims to be meritocratic, but schools discriminate in favor of the middle class. That's true, because if a student uses, this is a theorist, I can't remember what kind, Bernstein, he said that there are two language codes. Elaborate code like posh Tuesday, English rich girl, and then there's elaborate and restricted code, when they all like this and then they got slang and that. They favour the kid that talk posh like this. No, wait, talk like they'd have like a really good vocabulary, because that's how their parents socialise them to, like the rich people, because that's how they talk. Anyways, what are our evaluations of the Marxist role of education? Neo-Marxists say that it rejects the view that working class passively accept their position to become compliant workers. Marxists often fail to acknowledge that gender and ethnicity are often combined with class to produce the success or failure. That's true. They do not talk about like the gender inequalities. They only really talk about class, but I am still a Marxist, but a Marxist feminist. New Right theorist Saunders claims that middle class education is due to biological differences. What? That doesn't even make sense. New right Saunders theorist. What does that mean? What does that mean? How can you biologically... What? Anyway. Postmodernists say Marxists fail to acknowledge that education actually reproduces diversity rather than inequality. That can also be true, but like, because it has gotten better, but it's not completely there for all. Because there are bursaries and there are pupil premium to support the postmodern view. Okay. Moxie time. What have I not gone over? Yeah, repressive state apparatus. These are just like more terminology you might need to know. RSA, repressive state apparatus. I have it in here though. It means social institutions that enforce dominant ideologies through physical threat or force. Like the police or like the FBI open up. And then the ideological state apparatus is similar, which is which is also social institutions who pass on the dominant ideology of the ruling class, like social institutions like school, like church, like hospital, like media. Okay. What else did I miss out? Okay, let me tell you about a Marxist study. I think it was Marxist because it's in my Marxist notes. Who's coming downstairs? Just went to it. Anyway, this is a really important one. Paul Willis's Learning to Labour. You need to know this for education. This is key. Basically, it was a study of how working class kids get working class jobs, which is what I was talking about earlier. This is it in detail. So he used participant observations and unstructured interviews. Participant observations are like observing specific people, and unstructured interviews mean like it's just there's no specific questions. It's just like a flowing conversation with 12 British kids, 12 British working class boys. Remember that, working class boys, British 12. And he used to call them the lads. And he found that they were lazy. But why were they lazy? Because of anti-school subcultures. They had a realistic view of their destiny as factory workers. Did you hear that? They had a realistic view of their destiny as factory workers. They saw no point in education. They felt like they weren't going to do well at all, to the point where they thought, I'm going to give up. I'm going to work for Sheen. This made it impossible for them to succeed at school. Like, this mindset keep going in their head, thinking, why am I even here if I'm just going to end up in a Sheen shop? Or like building a corner shop or an extension to someone's house. This made it impossible for them to succeed at school and rise above their class position. Meaning they want to stay in the set 8. They want to stay in the lowest set because they don't care they lost. So their failure came from their working class culture, not the way the school operated. I'm not saying this is what I think they thought. This is what the study shows. His study was Marxist as it recognized the influence of his class inequalities. I spat on the paper. Postmodernists would say that this case study has cultivated a postmodern era where class division are irrelevant. as a result of society being more diverse. True, I guess, but like also not always true. But Marxists disagree with each other on the method of reproducing inequalities. Okay, here's another terminology thing. What is meant by false consciousness in education? It's like the process of which working class is made to accept inequality. That's it. This is the last topic of this video, and it is a labeling theory. What is labeling? Labeling is the process of attaching a label to someone based on the perceptions. Teachers place labels consciously and unconsciously onto students. Like, for example, if I was being super smart in class, as I do, my teacher would think that is a good student who will succeed. So she treats me like a student who will succeed. But if I'm naughty and I don't listen in class and I'm just talking, I seem distracted, the teacher's going to be thinking like, oh my dude, this kid does not care about her education, so let her not care about her education. And then she won't like give as much effort as she does to the kid who she thinks does. Valid, but not valid. You should be professional. Not aiming specifically. What factors trigger labels? Gender, intersectionality, social class, and ethnicity. What is intersectionality, you may ask? It's the way race, gender, sexuality overlap with each other, like all of them. So the consequences of labels have caused a few new theories, and I have made a rap with my friends like a few months ago, or like last year, to remember the different labeling case studies. So Rosenthal Jacobson, Big Million Effect, gave 20% of the class a fake IQ test, identified a few black boomers and named them the best, came back later and this was passed the test. Ray Wrist grouped his students into 3 rows, tigers, clowns, and cardinal hoes. Hempel divided them into 2 schools. Aspens were smart, Romans were fools. Okay, should I explain them now? Thanks to Alicia and Ty's slideshow they did. I printed it out. Okay, so Ray Ray's idea of segregation in the classroom. In an American kindergarten, Ray discovered setting was based on socioeconomic backgrounds. He thought that middle class meant that kids were academics, who he called tigers, and average kids were cardinals, and working class kids were troubled kids, who he called the clownfish. These kids would go on to carry labels with them even into high school, demonstrating the significance early labeling can have on academic achievement. Next one. Let me explain that into more detail. So basically, Ray Wrist found that the teacher segregated students into 3 groups: tigers, clowns, and cardinals. Cardinals were the average students, the not poor but not rich. And then the middle class students, he called them tigers, the academic successors. And then he called the working class kids, who he thought were dumb, clowns, clownfish. And then Ray Wrist found that these labels that the teacher put on them was carried on even outside of the school, like even when they went to secondary school. Why does my nose look so big? Next, Hempel and Jorgensen. He explored the ideal pupil. Well, first of all, let's talk about Becker. Becker had the idea that there's an ideal pupil. That the ideal pupil is female, white, middle class, and quiet. That's about it. So Hempel and Jorgensen explored the ideal pupil. In 2009, Hempel and Jorgensen investigated the concept of the ideal pupil between schools. Higher behavioral problem schools perceive the ideal pupil to be quiet and obedient. Less behavioral problem schools judged by personality and grade. This shows that the definition of ideal pupil is flexible. Next, Rosenthal and Jacobson. Rosenthal and Jacobson, the Pygmalion theory. It's reinforced shapes performance. It's the reinforcement that shapes performance. Students with lower predicted results were actually falling behind. Results were completely made up, but because the student had been treated accordingly to them, they'd end up academically achieving and underachieving. This supports the criticism of education via labeling theory. Basically, the Pygmalion the classroom was that a fake IQ test was given to students. Random 20 students were identified as bright bloomers and went back after a year and found that the students had made more progress than others. So if you identify a child to do well, that child is more likely going to do well, is what they're saying. Okay guys, that is basically it for my first video on education. And this isn't for your sake, it's for mine. So please use this or don't use this. I just needed to revise. Goodbye.